Kelvin Gastelum will be taking on Joe Pyfer March 29th in Mexico City. So Gastelum will have some home support there. This fight is at 185. Gastelum's moving back up to middleweight. He's had a lot of issues making welterweight. Back in the day, he missed weight by 9 pounds for his fight with Tyron Woodley at UFC 183. In June, Gastelum couldn't make the welterweight limit for his fight with Daniel Rodriguez, leading to the contest being moved up to middleweight. Gastelum took that fight via decision, but now he is moving back up to middleweight. Pyfer rebounded from his loss to Jack Hermansson with a big knockout over Marc-Andre Barriault, and he's looking to continue that trend against Gastelum on the 29th of March. Bruno Silva is going to be taking on Joshua Van at UFC 313 on March 8th. Some think it might be a bad idea for Silva to come back so quickly because he was recently knocked out at the end of the year by Manal Kape. Some think Van will win due to his volume striking, but others believe that Silva's knockout power could pose a dangerous challenge to Van. If Van wins impressively, he could end up in the top 10. The flyweight division is a weird one because they're thin on title challengers. Everyone's 1 or 2 good performances away from getting a title shot. Calvin Kattar will be taking on Youssef Zalal on February 15th. Calvin Kattar is ranked number 10 in the featherweight division, and Youssef Zalal is unranked. Zalal has been on the tear recently, won 3 in a row in the UFC since getting back in there. He may be favored in this fight because of his 6-fight win streak and looking so good in 2024. And Kattar hasn't won a fight in almost 3 years, so he could be the underdog here. Odds makers tend to favor fighters who are in good form, and recent performances do carry weight in predicting the outcome of a fight. Overall, in his career, Calvin Kattar has fought more tougher fighters, but back in his first stint with the UFC, Zalal did fight Topuria, and there's nobody better at 145. And Zalal did better than most people do against Topuria because most people do get crushed. Also on that card, Rodolfo Vieira takes on Andre Petroski. Petroski replaces Jacob Malkoun, who says it feels funny not being able to be the hardest worker in the room. This injury's been holding me back 9 months. Frustrating, yes, but I'll do what I've done for the last 13 years of my life. Be calm, patient, disciplined, level-headed. Roll with whatever punches life throws our way. Strong men don't sook. Just use whatever God gives them and finds a way. While Petroski is good on the ground and does a lot of submission grappling tournaments, so he's very comfortable there. Rodolfo Vieira is next level when it comes to his jiu-jitsu, so the key for Petroski is to just keep the fight standing and just not get taken down and tapped out. Esteban Ribovics versus Nasrat Haqparast on March 1st. Ribovics is coming off a fight of the year contender against Daniel Zellhuber. Ribovics won that fight via decision. Nasrat Haqparast is coming off a decision win himself over Jared Gordon. Farès Ziam versus Mike Davis on February 1st in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's a good fight between 2 guys that are just hovering outside of the rankings. Davis may have been in the rankings if he was able to fight more often. He's coming off a very dominant submission victory over Nathan Levy. Farès Ziam also looked great in his last fight. He knocked out Matt Frevola with a big knee in France. And Frevola is a former ranked fighter, so it should be a good lightweight scrap in Saudi Arabia. Besides that fight, there are some good fights on that card, headlined by Adesanya versus Amavov. Shara Bullet versus Michael Venom Page serves as the co-main event of the evening. Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira will be fun. Vinicius Oliveira is a pretty crazy, dangerous striker, so he's very entertaining. Naimov versus Offley, McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic. McKinney, win or lose, it's always a crazy end to the fight, so that should be a good one. Bogdan Grad versus Lucas Alexander. Abdul Wahab versus Pogues in the heavyweight division. Gaziv and Peterson also at heavyweight. Jordan Levitt versus Kareem Al-Sawadi. Sergey Pavlovich versus Jair Zinho Rosenstrike, number 4 and number 9 in the heavyweight division, as well as Ikram Alaskarov versus Andre Muniz in the middleweight division. And you also have Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Temirov on March 1st. That's going to be an interesting fight. Charles Johnson takes on a lot of tough guys who are unranked, and this is no different. Ramazan Temirov is an insanely aggressive striker with a lot of power, so should be interesting how it plays out. Johnson, a very hard guy to stop, and Ramazan Temirov, who is very adamant and aggressive about trying to stop you. Alex Morono versus Carlos Leal, UFC 313 on March 8th. Alex Morono fights a lot of tough guys with varied results. In his last 8 fights, he's 4-4, so 50-50. Carlos Leal made his UFC debut against Rinat Fakhretdinov. He lost a decision, but it was highly controversial. A lot of people thought Leal should have won that. Leal has a lot of experience outside of the UFC. Tough, powerful, really strong guy. People, a lot of them assume he was on steroids, but he never popped for anything yet. But this will be an interesting fight. UFC 313, March 8th. Also on that 313 card, March 8th, Bruno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosyan. Bruno Ferreira has some devastating power, knocking out Gregory Rodriguez, knocking out Dustin Stoolsfist with an elbow. Has a decent shot to knock out Petrosyan, who was TKO'd in his last fight with Shara Bullet Magomedov. Double spinning back fist. Wang taking on Bruna, Brazil, February 8th. Wang lost for the first time in her career in her last fight against Gabby Fernandez. Good job by Gabby hanging in there and pulling off the upset. I'd say it's a temporary derailment of Wang's side because she's a very talented striker. She was comfortably winning that fight before getting caught, dropped, and choked. As long as she doesn't get caught in this fight with Bruna, Brazil, she should be fine. Bruna's a solid fighter, but 2-2. Mixed results in the UFC. However, coming off a good win over Molly McCann via decision in July. JJ Aldrich is going to be taking on Andrea Lee March 1st. Aldrich, when she's on, she does extremely well. She holds a win over Jillian Robertson in the UFC. When she's on her game, she's a solid striker. Andrea Lee, she's struggled a lot lately, lost 5 in a row. Second longest active losing streak in the UFC right now. Tony's number 1 with 8. Then Andrea Lee with 5, who's tied with Tai Tuivasa, who's also lost 5 in a row. One more loss and Lee's probably cut, so from that perspective, it's a must-win for her. Mairon Santos taking on Francis Marshall, UFC 313 March 8th at Las Vegas T-Mobile Arena. The featherweight bout's part of an undercard that has a lot of Brazilian fighters booked, like Mairon Santos, who has some hype behind him, 14-1 record, won the Ultimate Fighter against Con Offley, and is looking to extend the streak in the UFC in this fight. Francis Marshall, UFC record of 2-2, most recently won against Bazookia. Should be an interesting fight. Santos is the favorite here. Sam Hughes is going to be taking on Rondinha Stephanie Luciano on March 15th. Luciano is a pretty good fighter with a couple knockouts on her record. Sam Hughes has more experience than her and has fought tougher opponents, so it'll be a good test to see where Luciano is at. That card also has Dyer Nurgazai, undefeated Kazakh fighter, 10-0, putting his undefeated streak on the line against Brendason Ribeiro on March 15th. Dyer is coming off the Contender Series, and this will be an interesting test for him. Another fighter making his debut at the Contender Series is Jorgen Santos, taking on Ozzy Diaz, UFC 313, March 8th. Ozzy Diaz fights, win, lose, or draw, are always interesting because he never goes the distance. 12 fights, 0 have gone to decision. And a couple more female fights were added to February and March cards. Yanesi Dubin versus Carly Judas on February 15th. Dubin replaces Juliana Miller, who pulled out of the fight. And Yasmin Yaregi versus Dion Barboza on March 29th in Mexico City. Yaregi will have the home nation crowd behind her. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and donate via Super Thanks.